Okay. Good evening. Is that on? Check, check. There we go. Okay, good evening. Welcome to our city council meeting this evening. I will say, as we were walking in, a few staff didn't know we were recognizing some high school students tonight, and we thought we had an angry crowd here tonight. So we're grateful you were here mostly for this. So, but welcome tonight. We will get started this evening. Get my agenda out with a Pledge of Allegiance tonight that will be given by one of our cross-country runners, Hiram Wood.
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Hiram. We'll move on to item 4.2, City Council comments and recognitions. Before we go to the recognitions, any other comments this evening? Okay, seeing none, we're going to jump right into this. This is one of the highlights of what we do, I think, now. We have 3 recognitions tonight. First, we're going to recognize Mr. Kelly DeHaan, who is a choir teacher at Mountain Ridge. Recently recognized as a Teacher of the Month. So Teddy, you're going to take this one?
Yeah, Kelly, if you want to stand up here.
Is Kelly here?
Is Kelly here tonight? I don't see him.
Here.
Oh, darn.
Okay, should we do that next month then? Mayor, do you mind if I say something about Sure, come on up, Todd. You got 30 seconds. And at Todd time, that's a couple. Come on up here to the.
Start that timer.
Come on up to the
now.
mic, yeah.
You probably need to recognize him. I'm certainly principal of Harriman, and he's Mountain Ridge, but I have to tell you a story about him quickly. I lost my choir teacher at Copper Hills High School when I was principal there. And Kelly DeHaan, on his time, he was he was a choir teacher at West Jordan High School. He heard we were in trouble mid-year. That man drove and spent his time preparing Copper Hills High School for festival, our choirs. That man is one of the most selfless individuals that I have worked with. So I hope he comes back. He is certainly deserving of your recognition.
Thank you, Todd. We'll add that to our comments for next time. Then.
Awesome.
Okay, are you okay just wait until he's here then?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Okay, we'll move on to our Mountain Ridge High School volleyball team who recently placed second at state. So ladies, if you want to come up with your coaches, come on up here.
Don't be shy.
Thank you for being here. So again, we just want to recognize these ladies for taking second at state. If you know anything about athletics, being in 6A right now, still pretty new school. So to take second place in the 6A classification is a huge accomplishment. So we wanted to be here to recognize you tonight. And then we're going to turn some time over to Coach, so kind of mention some individual recognitions that may have come along as well. And Coach, any other stories you want to share about the team too? Welcome. Take a couple minutes.
First of all, thank you again. The recognition is a lot of hard work that these girls have put in. Mountain Ridge is in our 4th year open, so relatively new school, relatively new program. So this is the first class where we had the girls from freshman all the way to senior. Second place in state, came up a little bit short at the state championship game, but gave Lone Peak a big run for their money. Also won our first region championship this year, had 5 members on the all-region team, and then we had a first-team All-State, Ireland McNeese, and then we had 3 second-team All-Staters with Kiera Cook, Sadie White, and Riley Parkinson. 3 of those young ladies are committed to play volleyball at the next level, and then there are a couple up here still just kind of testing the waters to see if they want to continue their play as well. Ended the season 28-5, most wins in our school history, and like I said, the region championship means a lot to us too. So, like you said, in 6A, that kind of competition, it's pretty impressive that we were able to work hard and get to that spot. So, super proud of all my coaches, my community, my administration. Everybody's been great. So, and again, thank you guys for recognizing these girls and their hard work.
Congratulations. Thank you, Coach. Ladies, if you'll stay up here, ladies. Coach, we're going to do a picture. Coach, we're going to do a picture, if you don't mind. Bringing the ladies up here, we'll do a picture. And okay, next we're going to recognize tonight the Harriman High Cross Country team. So come on up. We are recognizing this team tonight because they took third at the Nike Cross Nationals. And having cross-country runners, we're a cross-country family. Coach, you can attest to this. Cross-country is all about timing and when you peak. So I understand state didn't go great, but everything was being geared up towards these big events. So to qualify, take third at NXN is huge. I mean, I think that's a testament to the timing of the training. So I think that goes beyond anything that could be accomplished at the state level. So we just want to, I mean, that's a big race. Portland, right? Is it up in Portland? So they qualify through NXR down in Tucson, what's the Casa Grande, right? Right. And then moved on to NXN in Portland. So to take third on the national level is huge. So congratulations. And Coach, if you want to take a minute and highlight some other achievements.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, definitely a blessing. This was my first season for cross country at Harriman High School, coming up from California, and met with Principal Kornberg and saw that our visions were very similar. And so when I was out there with the kids, we started talking about what we could accomplish. And one of the goals they set in May was to finish top 5 at the national meet. There's 16,801 high schools that run cross country in the United States, and they finished 3rd overall. So pretty impressive performance for these guys to bounce back from a rough state meet and just stay focused. And I think it's a testament to senior leadership. Our first 4 guys our 4 of our top guys are senior boys that have just run really well. We had 2 that were All-American. There were only 2 teams in the country that had All-Americans. We had Noah Jenkins was 16th and Will Horn was 21st. So pretty impressive group of boys across the board, but to see them go out there and perform at such a high level in such a big race with no real experience at that level was just tremendous and super exciting for us. And we knew when we went down to California and competed against the best of the best down there and came out with a win that we could compete with anybody, and to watch them dial it in when it mattered and really step up. I think the biggest thing was they just weren't afraid of anyone, and that's kind of that Harriman toughness coming through, so we were really proud of them.
Thank you, Coach.
squishing, squish.
Yeah, a little tighter than that. Those 2 rows.
Short people in front of me.
One, two, three. 1, 2, 3. Congrats, guys.
You got some sick kids at home?
Yeah, my middle child. Ear infections, aches.
We spent like an hour on the phone with the nurse today getting ready for
Okay, we will move on to item 5 tonight, which is public comment. Audience members may bring any item to the city council's attention. Comments will be limited to 2 minutes. State law prohibits the council from acting on items that do not appear on the agenda. Public comments for this meeting will also be conducted electronically. Any person interested in addressing the council may submit a comment by emailing recorder@harriman.org or by visiting harriman.org/agendas and minutes, where there's a link to fill out an online public comment form. Your statement will be incorporated into the public record. So I do have 2 forms here tonight, and then if there's any additional, you can fill out a form and give it to, are there more coming? Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started with Chad Danzy.
So first of all, I'd request a little bit more time, simply because I am representing a coalition of members affected by the Harriman widening project. So I do know that originally you usually allow 5 minutes of time. Is that correct?
Is that correct?
Great.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Okay. Dear Harriman City Council and Mayor, I am here to discuss my concerns about the Harriman City's lack of transparency and unjust pressure placed on me and my neighbors due to the Harriman Highway Road widening project. As a property owner along this roadway, I'm directly affected by this project. Harriman City has recently been pressuring me and my neighbors to sign vague paperwork and threatening condemnation of our land. I became involved in this project last year when Harriman City asked for my help so they could apply for county and state grants needed to widen and improve the roadway. At the time, they assured me that I would be fully compensated for my land required and property damage. They also said they would keep me and my neighbors informed when they received grants and begin construction. At the time, the starting date of this project was spring 2025. At the end of January 2023, I was contacted by an acquisition agent hired by Harriman City. She sent me some vague paperwork, which would give Harriman City total access to my property for 2 years and threatened that I must sign or my property would be condemned. Harriman City was only willing to give me $9,200 for approximately a quarter acre of ground and not willing to compensate me for any fences, trees, or gates removed. This ground would otherwise be worth approximately $100,000 to $125,000 in the real estate market. After talking with other neighbors affected by this road widening project, I noticed a common theme of intimidation to sign vague paperwork and low compensation for ground and access taken by Harriman City. Many neighbors like me were also being threatened with condemnation of our land by Harriman City's acquisition agent. There was also a lack of information on what was being completed during the street widening project. On February 6th, I met with Harriman City Engineering and discussed my concerns of improper compensation and lack of transparency. I asked why Harriman City had not had any neighborhood meetings to discuss their plans for Harriman City widening project. They were hesitant to do so, and they said they would have to think about it. They also said they did not want to pay proper compensation as they decided that they owned my private roadway and it was now public despite my affirmations and evidence that had been closed multiple times in the past. I decided the only way to get Harriman City to compromise was to create a coalition of neighbors to confront Harriman City. I have since contacted my neighbors affected by the street widening project to keep them updated and help them make informed decisions. This included 3 letters encouraging them to ask questions, get all agreements in writing, and to encourage them to contact their city council members. We currently have a coalition of over 50 concerned neighbors. I've also contacted the state of Utah ombudsman, who met with me and my neighbors on February 22nd to provide information on property rights. After much pressure, Harriman City finally conceded to and met with us on February 23rd in an open house to respond to some of our concerns. Unfortunately, many of our questions still have not been answered and our concerns have not been met. In an attempt to get further information about this roadway, we have been blocked by ground request paperwork and continue to be threatened with condemnation of our ground. I have contacted the Harriman Engineering Department multiple times to discuss some of the concerns that my neighbors and I have had with the project. They are only willing to meet with us individually, but as we have met as a coalition, it has been evident that many neighbors are getting contradictory information. This lack of clarity is concerning. Harriman appears to be trying to railroad this project over the desire of those affected. To express our concerns, ask for help, and ensure that Harriman City is responsible for its actions, we have written multiple letters and emails to you, the mayor, the city council members, without any response. The only council member to have responded to my pleas for help was Sherry Orn, who talked with me personally and attended the Harriman City open house requested by us. When Harriman City Engineering proposed the plan to widen Harriman Highway, they presented the plan as if they had already purchased the land from property owners. This was not the case. Just as it is inappropriate to build a house on land that you do not own, it is inappropriate for Harriman to widen Harriman Highway when you have not purchased the ground from property owners. I've recently been researching the grants Harriman City received from state and county agencies to widen the highway and have noticed several discrepancies. For example, Harriman City received funds from the Salt Lake County Corridor Preservation Fund, a fund that the county operates from car registration fees. Cities and counties can apply for money, but there are restrictions. One of these restrictions is the money cannot be used if the land is being condemned. Harriman is currently threatening landowners with condemnation of their land, yet using these funds for their project. This is fraudulent, and the Salt Lake County is currently investigating these actions. In addition, the state UDOT internal auditor is investigating the use of the funds from HB 244, First Class County Highway Road Funds. These 2 grants include the majority of the funding to be used for the widening of Harriman Highway. I ask you, why is Harriman City and my neighbors in such conflict? First of all, it is due to a lack of transparency and misleading dealings. Before the bid was approved for landmark excavating to widen the road, Harriman City should have talked with all landowners, answered their questions, purchased their land, and compensated for all property damage. Second, Harriman must pay for land they desire. It is not appropriate to threaten condemnation when public funds stipulate otherwise. We request that this project be put on hold until property owners are fully informed and paid for all their land and property being confiscated. Please help me and my neighbors protect our property by getting us the information we need and investigating Harriman City's actions. I have lived in Harriman my entire life. I am proud to call Harriman home, but I also do not want Harriman City to abuse my property rights or those of my neighbors. For that reason, I hope you will help me to encourage Harriman City to be more transparent and accountable. I want this project to be successful, but also responsible as well. Sincerely, Chad Danzy. Thank you.
Chad. The next comment form I have is from Austin Weaver.
Thank you. I sent an email earlier today to, I think I've spammed everyone on the council. So I just have kind of a unique situation. The email details it in more detail, but I thought it would be good in case any of my neighbors are present in the meeting or if they look up any of the city agenda items, because this might affect them as well. So the unique situation I find myself in is that my house number where I live in Harriman has the same house number as my neighbor directly across the street from me. And our addresses are on separate streets. So he lives in a home, my neighbor, and then I live in kind of a town home with 4 units attached. And I have a garage where my home address is listed. However, our front door, our frontage is listed as our garage, but our front door faces Stonehaze Drive is the road. And this has been, there's been some minor inconveniences, including constantly getting packages in mail delivered incorrectly, visitors having a difficult time identifying our respective residences from the perspective of Stonehaze Drive. Often legal billing or other tax documents might be sent to the wrong home as well. And the main reason I bring up this concern is emergency vehicles such as an ambulance, fire truck, or police car may have difficulty in identifying our home in the event of a catastrophe. In the email, I've written a more detailed description of the codes that are violated by numbering the streets in this way, but the main one that I'm concerned about is emergency vehicles. And I myself am a civil engineer by trade, specializing in land development, so I understand all the work that goes into to planning and how oversights like this can be very common. So I just appreciate your patience. And if you're not the ones that have the jurisdiction over the addressing, if you could refer me to the right agency, I'd really appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you, Austin. And I think you'll be hearing from Austin. We've already discussed it internally today, and I think you'll be hearing from somebody right away. So, okay. Any other comments this evening?
Mayor, if we submitted online, will that not show on your agenda?
It will not show on the agenda. It will. Did you get an online one?
Would put it as part of the record, but it's not stated in the meeting.
Yeah, we wouldn't read it in the meeting. It's part of the record. We would get through and go through in the minutes. So you're welcome to come.
I'll just steal 2 minutes if that's all right.
You bet. If you could just state your name.
Yeah, my name is John Powell. I'm the store manager for Ace Hardware just down the road. And I am here just simply to beg your help with our ongoing issue with Vasa parking. It is literally ruining our business. It's ruining my job for sure. It is a non-stop, never-ending problem. I would say on any given night, especially Mondays, which is probably the worst night, they are taking 90 to 95% of our parking. And it is constant from our customers. I've had 3 social media posts this week alone, talking about our parking. And, that's a big deal for a retail business. It hurts us. But it is definitely affecting us. Our customers tell us about it just literally constantly. And I've done everything I know to do. We've put up flags, signs. I spend 3 hours, 4 hours every Saturday just standing in my parking lot asking them to move because otherwise there are no spots for my customers. I don't know what else. This is kind of our last step before we probably take legal action with Vasa and whatnot. And so I'm just making sure I've gone through the motions and asking for any help that I can possibly get from the city because we just don't know what else to do. The CCRs, the way they're written, say it's a common area, but I'm sure that it was not intended that they would be using 95% of our parking on any given day. There's a ton of cost that goes along with that. They've hit our building 5 times now. There's literally a pile from the most recent strike on our building, and it shutters our building. At some point, somebody will drive through the edge of our building, and it will be a major issue. So I've got more security cameras being installed. It just does not end, and it's every single day, all day long. Thank you. We'll take any help you can give us.
We appreciate it. Thank you, John. Any other public comments this evening? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to item 6, City Council reports. Start with Jared. Nothing tonight. Teddy.
We had a South Valley Sewer Board meeting the end of last month. Just a couple basic things about maintenance and construction that we're seeing in the next few years. Also, our general manager is changing over his retirement. Our general manager of 15 plus years is moving on, and we have Joel Thompson will be taking his spot. He's been with the department since day one with him, and he's learned everything from the ground up. So it'll be a change for a lot of entities around here calling Joel instead of Craig White. So we want to give Craig a good send-off this next month as he goes on a mission up to Alaska. So if you ever deal with the sewer board, you'll be dealing with a new general manager from now on. So that's it.
Okay. Thank you, Teddy. Sherry, anything tonight?
Just water board. I was there today at the Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District, and obviously we're having a good water year. We're having a lot of snow. I think the The water equivalent is about 157% right now, which is great. We need it. Looks like Jordanelle will probably fill about, let's see, can't remember if it's Deer Creek was 90+% and Jordanelle will be full. But you'd think that they would all be overflowing with the water we're getting, but that just helps you understand what a bad drought we're in. So it's great we're getting this much moisture. We're getting more today. We're grateful for that. But conservation will still be a steady drum in our state because no matter, we just continue to grow and there's more and more demands on our water. So we'll continue to walk the path of trying to be responsible users of our water and conserve and do our best to adhere to those standards. But we're grateful for the great water that we're getting, and that's my report.
Perfect. Thank you, Sherry. Steve?
Nothing.
Okay. And I don't have anything other than the session is over. So we can breathe again. Yes. So, okay.
One quick thing about staff and the recognition we did just, was it yesterday? The luncheon? That was wonderful. Thanks for events department. I'm putting that on. Thanks for the people that have been here 5, 10, 15, 20 plus years. So
It was Human Resources did all of that. It wasn't me.
good job, HR.
Strong word. Okay, move on to item 8. Look for either a motion on the consent agenda or any comments.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as written.
Second.
Motion by Sherry, second by Jared. Steve?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Teddy?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. That motion carries. Move on to item 9.1. Consideration to adopt a new transportation master plan. Bryce?
All right. Good evening, council. This is a continuation of our discussion a couple weeks ago about the updates that we've been doing to the transportation master plan. So we've got Jeremy Searle here from WCG, who is our traffic consultant on the project and helped us kind of build the model and come up with the project list and did kind of the bulk of the work, the lift of the work for our transportation master plan. So the presentation hasn't changed a whole lot, so we've directed him to go through quickly, but feel free if you have questions to stop him, and we can always go back kind of based on your guys' input. So with that, as John's bringing it up, and then the other thing is that, just so you're aware, Planning Commission did see this and voted 6-0 to approve it. They did give a recommendation to consider landscaping area a little bit more in the future in our roadway cross sections, but that was their recommendation. So with that, I'll give time to Jeremy, and I'll just hang out if there's any questions.
Thank you, Bryce. My name's Jeremy Searle. I'm with WCG. I've really enjoyed working with your staff on this project. They're amazing and do a wonderful job. So thank you for letting me come and talk with you tonight. As Bryce mentioned, we've talked with you before. This is familiar to you, so I'll go through fast. But it is important to have an up-to-date transportation master plan, especially in a community that is growing so quickly and with so many new changes with annexation and things like that. The other thing with the transportation master plan is it's your backbone for your capital facilities plan, so what projects you're going to be building, as well as the basis for your impact fee, your transportation impact fee. To do a transportation master plan, we look at a lot of existing conditions data. We look at demographic projections for the population here and compare that to what the state and WFRC are projecting, as well as what's actually been happening here in Harriman. We do a thorough safety analysis. We've talked about this before. We have been seeing kind of a slight uptick in crashes in the last couple of years. We do make some recommendations on how to improve safety. Mountain View Corridor in particular seems to have some safety issues, and we know that the city is working closely with UDOT to address those, and we hope that improves in the future. All right. We also look at the existing level of service on your roadways now. You can see that here on the screen. Green is obviously good as it goes to yellow and then to red. Red's when it shows things are failing. And so we want to make sure that we analyze what's happening now and then look into the future and how that will change with a lot of the growth that's planned here in Harriman. Bryce mentioned the cross sections. You can see those here on your screen. We've got all the way from a minor collector up to major arterial. There's also local roads as well, but these are kind of the larger backbone roads for the city. All right. Using this kind of existing conditions analysis, we then start to build on that for the future and look to there. One of the big things that's happening in Harriman is UDOT is conducting an environmental study on the west side for U111. And we went and had a lot of meetings early on in our Transportation Master Plan update and met with different people and analyzed several different alternatives and kind of settled on one that we felt like was likely to be chosen here. As we got close to wrapping up the master plan, UDOT progressed further on their environmental study and has come to kind of a different conclusion on what that alignment will be. It's not set in stone yet. This study is still ongoing, so there's still possibilities that it could change. But you can see the latest from UDOT here on the screen. That's kind of the alignment that they're looking at right now. So it is a little bit different than what's in the master plan. The nice thing is that as far as our impact fees go, there's already a development agreement with Olympia Hills, and so that doesn't change our impact fee analysis, even though the alignment through there is a little bit different. Some of the roadways are slightly different. The rest of the city still holds true to what we've analyzed, and so the impact fee analysis is correct. This is what we analyzed. You can see that again. We don't anticipate the volumes to change too significantly from this, but it is worth noting that the alignments that we analyzed previously are a little bit different than what UDOT has that it is looking at currently. Okay. Some of the other things that we do in a transportation master plan is we look at the functional classifications. Again, those collector and arterial roadways. You can see the existing map there on the left for 2020, and then we look out to 2050 and see that those new roadways that we anticipate being added and some of the changes in classification is we may need to widen some of these to accommodate future demands. Okay. To do this, we look at two different things. We look at a minimum build, or what we call a kind of a no build, where if we did nothing, what would happen? And then we look at a build scenario to say, okay, this is what we need to do to accommodate all the growth that's coming. So this is our minimum build in 2030. You can see several roads that are red or are expected to fail in the future. That's what helps us identify what projects we need. And then same thing for 2050. You can see on the screen here, there's more of those that are red or expected to fail in the future. And again, that's how we help determine what projects we need to address these issues. Here's our 2030 build scenario. So once we implement those projects that we've identified, we can see that in general, most of these roads are green or yellow, which is acceptable. They're at good levels of service. There are a couple that we're seeing still some potential failure in the future, but we've addressed these here. 118th South, we do address the main problem there with the Phase 1 project, but there's a little bit to the east where we share a road with South Jordan City. That will be a Phase 2 project, so after 2030, to tie in with their master plan and do it together. And then Harriman Boulevard or 126 South, this is an area that UDOT is doing a study on right now to address this. This is projected to see some really high volumes in the future, and so there's got to be some unique solutions here. So that's being studied right now. All right, looking into 2050, again, our project list addresses most issues. There are a couple that we see here. I'm not going to go into too much detail on these. We've talked about most of them before. One I just want to mention is 6400 West. I know there was a question on that in the past, whether that should be a project to widen to 5 lanes. We looked at that closer with UDOT's new proposed alignment that actually shifts a lot of the traffic away from 6400 West. The alignment that we had assumed pushed more to 6400 West, and that our capacity that we were seeing in the future was right above that break point. And so by that proposed UDOT alignment, that actually drops it right, drops it below that capacity threshold. So we don't see any need to add another project for 6400 West. We think that 3-lane cross-section will be adequate through 2050. Okay. I do just want to note that we did account for a lot of growth, both inside and outside of Harriman. There's large Rio Tinto areas up here. This is speculative. We have tried to reach out to Rio Tinto and get an idea, but they just don't have solid ideas of what's going to happen to that land at this point. And so we've made some assumptions here. We've assumed 8,000 new households in this area that you can see blocked out with the red boundary. But it is a little bit speculative, but we feel like this is a conservative analysis and will meet the needs of the city through the future. Okay. Again, I'm trying to go through this fast. We have identified future projects. You can see those on the screen here. Phase 1, which is the next 10 years, is shown in red. Phase 2, which is 2030 to 2040, is shown in blue. And then Phase 3, which is shown in green, which is 2040 to 2050. So you can see those projects. These are roadway projects identified here on the screen. And then the next screen, these are intersection projects. And again, the colors represent the same phases. So red is phase 1, blue phase 2, green phase 3. And that's a quick summary of the Transportation Master Plan. That's all outlined in the document, and I think you've seen that before. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Can we hire him to do most of our presentations? He was pretty good.
I was trying to keep it moving. No.
Maybe just some training. Yeah. Or Heidi.
Oh, man. Oh. Wow. I don't know what to say after that, Jeremy. So,
Sorry,
thank you.
It's probably too fast.
Thank you.
No, it was great.
It was great. Any comments or questions from, I know we've been through this. Any comments or
No
questions?
such thing as too fast.
I second that.
Yeah. So I'm supportive of approving the transportation plan, but I just, back of the napkin, just the phase 1 improvement cost is $240 million. So we have some work to do.
Yes, yes we do.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Okay. I'll look for a motion then.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 2023-05, adopting and approving an updated transportation plan.
Second.
Motion by Teddy, second by Jared. Jared?
Yes.
Teddy?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. That motion carries. Okay. Thank you, Jeremy. Appreciate you being here. Thanks for your help. And thank you, Bryce. Move on to item 9.2, discussion and consideration of a statement of work contract with Strata Networks for a high-level design of a citywide fiber optic network. Blake.
I didn't prepare a presentation, so hopefully I can go as fast as Jeremy did. So we've been working for quite a while with the Broadband Task Force. We were the High-Speed Internet Task Force. I think it was more appropriate to name us the Broadband Task Force after a while. And several months ago, we put out a solicitation for an intent to negotiate. The proposer that was selected from that effort was Strata Networks. And then at that time, the council directed the task force to move forward with negotiating a contract. And we're at that point now. The contract that we have in the packet is a statement of work, and it's a scope to prepare a high-level design. We do have a couple of representatives from Strata Networks that could answer any questions you have about that statement of work. This statement of work will provide plans to show the location of infrastructure, key routes, distribution areas, a preliminary cost estimate to implement the system, and work should be done in no longer than 6 months. The cost associated with the contract is $58,000, with half of that being due within, I think, 15 days of the approval of the statement of work. And then if the city decides to move forward with the project to do a citywide broadband fiber optic network, then the cost of this will get rolled into that overall cost. It's the staff's recommendation that this statement of work be approved to move forward with this high-level design. And like I said, I'd be happy to answer any questions, or we have Tyler Rasmussen or Dave Ryan from Strata Networks here to answer any questions that I'm not able to answer.
Are you guys staying the night? Driving home tonight? Okay, let's have a long conversation, just.
Wow. We're making a lot of friends tonight.
The valley will be fun.
Motion to approve the statement of work contract with Strata Networks for a high-level design of a citywide fiber optic network.
Second.
Motion by Jared, second by Teddy. All in favor?
Aye.
I'll vote yes, that motion carries.
Done.
Done.
Thank you, Jared.
Nobody's asking any questions. Somebody's got to move it on.
Thanks, guys.
Drive safe.
Always.
Okay, move on to item 10. We have a public hearing. Are we going to do both of these together then? Sherry, is that how you want to do it then, Jackie? Or is there just one public? No, okay, I'm with you. I'm following your notes now. We haven't had one of these for a while. Okay, we're going to do item 10.1, which is a public hearing and consideration of an ordinance relating to the proposed annexation petition filed by Kennecott, Utah Copper. Jackie.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for listening to this item. So December of last year, Kennecott, Utah Copper filed an annexation petition to bring approximately 30 acres of property into Harriman city limits as depicted on the map on your screen. The protest period ended February 17th. No protests were filed. The next step in the process is actually to conduct the public hearing. And at the commencement of that public hearing, if no comments are offered and if the council would like to actually consider the ordinance to annex the property in. But if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Nothing from us? Would the applicant like to? Wayne, do you all?
I did ask the applicant to be here to answer any questions that you guys may have that I may not be able to answer.
Okay. Wayne, do you have anything you want to add, or?
No, Wayne Bradshaw with Rio Tinto Kennecott. Just want to thank Jackie and the rest of the staff for helping us through this process, and we're happy to answer any questions the council might have.
I think we're good.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. Thanks for being here. Okay. We will now turn to any comments from the public on this item. Okay. Seeing none, I'll look for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion by Sherry.
Second.
Second by Steve. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any comments from the council, or look for a motion?
Motion to approve ordinance number 2023-06, annexing territory located at or near 118th South, 7200 West, compromising approximately 30 acres into Harriman City, establishing zoning for the annexed territory, and amending the zoning map of the city and related matters.
Second.
Motion by Steve, second by Jared. Jared?
Yes.
Teddy?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. That motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for being here tonight. Okay. Item 10.2, a public hearing and consideration of an ordinance to adopt a new impact fee facility plan, impact fee analysis, and impact fee enactment. Bryce.
All right, back again. So this is kind of phase 2 of the transportation master plan. The master plan gives us where we are planning the roads, and Steve, Councilmember Shields pointed towards there's a cost to build these roads. So the next step is how to fund these roads, and part of that is through impact fees, and that's an analysis where we go through and look at the growth in Harriman City and what cost of those roads can be attributed to the new growth. And based on those numbers, WCG, Jeremy, and also Zion's Bank kind of help come together to give us an impact fee analysis that we're following all state statutes and charging the right amount for impact fees based on the new master plan and the projected growth. And so with that, I'll kick it back to Jeremy just to talk about the process, and then if we have any questions, we can kind of go from there.
Okay. Thank you, Bryce. That was a good introduction. As Bryce said, we use the master plan to identify these projects. You can see them shown here again. The impact fees can, state law shows that impact fees can only be used to, or be enacted for roadway capacity projects that are directly attributable to new growth, okay? So what that means is we can't use them to do maintenance. We can't use them to try and fix existing problems. These fees have to be directly attributable to new growth and new capacity needed because of that new growth. And so that's the task that we need to do. Once we've identified the projects, okay, what percentage of this project is directly attributable to new growth? And it can also be for projects in the next 6 to 10 years. And so those are the projects identified in red on your screen. We can't charge for projects that will happen 20, 30 years from now. It has to be in the next 6 to 10 years. So we had the roadway projects on the previous screen. This one shows the intersection projects. So as we went through that, as was mentioned earlier, there's a cost to these. And so we did a cost estimate for each one of these projects. You can see both the roadway and intersection projects. For phase 1, we have $250 million worth of improvements that are needed for those. Now, there's a lot of different ways to pay for these. Impact fees is one of them. There are WFRC funds, there could be UDOT funds. Developers, as they, Olympia Hills has made an agreement to pay for new roadways that they're putting in. I mentioned 118th earlier. That's shared with South Jordan, so there's going to be some shared costs there with adjacent cities, other grants and things like that. So there's other ways to pay for it, and we need to take those into account when we do impact fees. We can't charge impact fees for something that UDOT is paying for, right? Those types of things. All right, so when we do this, we look at each of these projects, and again, we need to look at what's directly attributable to new growth. So we have to take out the existing traffic that's going to use that road. We have to take out cut-through traffic, so traffic that may start in South Jordan and go, down to Bluffdale or something like that. The nice thing with Harriman is you're kind of in the corner here. You don't have a lot of cut-through traffic, right? So, but we do account for that. We can only account for new growth that happens in Harriman. So if we have new trips in South Jordan that drive to Bluffdale and go through the city, we can't attribute those and count impact fees for those. So we take all that into account. And as we do that, we then divide that cost, the impact fee eligible cost, by the number of new trips that'll be generated in the city over the next 10 years. And we get a cost from that. You can see that at the bottom of your screen. Now, that's not our final impact fee cost. That's what comes from just the projects itself. So that's what's identified in the IFFP. The next step is to do an IFA, and this is all outlined in state codes. We have to kind of follow these steps. So the IFA, or the impact fee analysis, was completed by Zions Bank. They take our analysis that we did, and then they also account for bonds, for buy-in costs. Buy-in is projects that have already been built, but new development is using some of that capacity. And so that new development needs to buy in to that existing infrastructure that has already been built. And so there's some of that goes into the impact fees. So Zions takes all that into account, and they come up with the final cost per daily trip. And you can see that on your screen there of just over $400 per trip. Now, once we have a cost per trip, then we need to say, okay, a new development comes in, they're building some, a little bit of commercial and maybe some townhomes, right? Well, how much do they need to pay in impact fees? Well, how many trips are they going to generate? And we can do that using ITE trip generation calculations and by assigning a fee to that. So you can see that table here. So for example, we'll just use the top line here. An industrial park, for every 1,000 square feet of floor area for industrial use, we anticipate there would be about 3.4-ish trips generated by that, which gives a fee of $1,375 for each 1,000 square feet, okay? And so that follows through on the table. Now, if we go to the next slide here.
Can I interrupt you just one quick
yes, please.
on that page?
Yep.
Can you explain why for elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools, those trip numbers are so low Because that seems in.
Per student, though.
Per student.
But
So these are averages. These are ITE numbers that are collected at hundreds of elementary schools across the country, and an average is taken. So if you look at a charter school, you're going to have way more trips, right? Public schools have buses, walking, things like that, and so some of the trips go down, and those are per student.
One question on that charter school, I wrote it down. Where does that sit on this graph, or is it just not part of this graph yet?
It's not in this a charter school.
But there
not
is
in
a
this
charter school
table.
different.
So there's a couple ways that could be handled. They may have to do a traffic impact study, which would identify how many trips that they will generate, and then you can take that number of trips from the traffic impact study and apply this cost per daily trip that you see on the screen, that 400. So, yeah, this table here is not going to account for every possible land use, right? There's going to be some weird thing that comes into the city that's not on this table. That's totally fine. They would just do a traffic impact study that would identify those number of trips, and then you can use that to get costs.
Sure. Thing. So an elementary school as opposed to a high school, the students don't leave in a car. They get dropped off and picked up. So 2 trips a day is typically what you're going to see at an elementary school because they can't leave on their own in a car, whereas a high school student generally can leave for lunch between classes and whatnot, so their trips are going to be a little bit higher as opposed to an elementary student that gets dropped off in the morning, picked up in the afternoon, right? So that 2 trips per day, that's those ITE trips, that third or fourth column is how many trips that use will, the projected use that will, how many trips they'll have in that day caused by that land
I
use.
misunderstood that's per student.
Yes,
Now
that's
it makes
per
sense. Yeah, got
student.
it.
So say your elementary school has 500 students, you times the 500 by that 2.2, and that's how many trips we project the school will produce as a whole, and then we multiply it by the fee that's charged by that, so.
Now, are they going off projected enrollment? Say the high school can handle 2,200 kids, that's the impact fee number? Capacity?
Generally, yeah, we go off of capacity, but, yeah, yep.
So since they're all over capacity?
Yeah, that gets a little tricky when we start adding portables and stuff, right? But yeah, generally and I don't know, we'd have to.
That's a good question. Is there, because they build these schools in anticipation for portables on the elementary and middle, are we taking that into impact fees there or no?
That would be a good question to see what state law allows us to do. General practice is to charge the capacity that they're planning on. So if they're planning on and have it in their facility plan to have max students, that's usually what we'll charge. But if they're adding portables after the fact, that may not be accounted for.
Not permanent structure.
Well, but they typically build these for portables so they can downsize them because the ebb and flow. But and that should be on their plan, right? Or is it just that's tough.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how well it's planned out, right, from the school. If the portables are planned, then it should be. But older schools, right, in certain areas, they're kind of improvising in some areas. So, yeah, it depends on the school, I would say. But in general, that is correct. We go off of what they project as their capacity at the school. Any other land use questions?
Okay, thanks, Bryce. One thing you'll notice about this table is it has, a decent number, I don't know, 20 or so different land uses here. Your current impact fees have 4, and these haven't been updated since at least 2011, maybe a little longer. So it's been a while. And so we feel like this table will fit a lot more of the land uses that may come into the city. Again, there may be unique cases, and that's okay. We can always account for those when we do impact fees or assess impact fees. But definitely, I think this will be beneficial for the city since they haven't been updated in quite some time. You'll notice here that the fees have gone up, and I think that's to be anticipated with the amount of growth that we've seen, as well as just inflation. It costs a lot more to build a road now than it used to, and construction costs in particular have really gone up. I will note that these fees that you see on this screen here, well, let me go back one, the max fee on the very far right column, This is a maximum allowable fee, meaning you can charge this fee or you can charge less if you decide to, but you cannot charge more according to state law. And when I say you can charge less, you could charge less if you adopted it citywide. You can't pick and choose projects to charge less on, right?
Yeah, I don't think we'll be doing
that. It would be a citywide decision.
Moving along.
Yep.
Okay, got it. And I wouldn't recommend going less because you have a lot of needs in the future. So it makes sense to charge the impact fees and try and build out your infrastructure for that. We highlighted a couple of these key ones. A single family residential, your impact fee used to be $2,100. We're recommending $3,849. Okay, and that's it. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
I think it's been long overdue.
Yep. Thank you, Jeremy.
Ken, I just want to note the very good news that of $400 million in projects in today's dollars, these impact fees will cover 66 million of them.
Right.
So if we would have been collecting proper impact fees through the last decade, we would have been a little closer.
Beneficial, yes.
Yeah, we'd probably only need 320 more instead of 340 more. Yeah.
Okay, we'll open it right now for public comment. If there's anybody, public comment on this item.
I was just looking at the numbers, they don't make sense. For example, if you go back to the numbers for the schools, he talked about how in elementary school, you have students go there and come back. But your high school students, which you have many more cars, kids are driving all the time, their adjusted trip rate is lower than in elementary. The numbers don't make sense. That should be a higher rate. This is the problem, I think. I don't think you're getting told things that are not correct. And I'm very concerned because just simply looking at that is very concerning. The other thing I just want to talk about is impact fees are driving developers to not want to develop in Harriman. When you increase the fee by $1,700 for a single family home, that means you're charging that person to buy another home, another $1,700, probably more than that, because they're going to bring that up more to that person. If you want homes to be low price and affordable and not $1 million homes where people can't buy, you can't charge these fees. They're too high. You've got to find other sources of income. And that's the problem. I think you're getting told something, and these numbers are not correct simply by just looking at them. By just glancing at them, they're not right. So I would be very concerned. This is the same problem when I went to the bidding by the Harriman Widening Project. You were told something that wasn't correct. Don't make a decision until you've really gone through the numbers. I don't want you to make another mistake. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Chad.
I would just like to respond. There's a misconception that the cost of inputs determines the price of homes. The price of homes are determined by market forces. You can add up all the costs to build a house. The builder does not charge what it costs plus a margin. They charge what it costs up to whatever the market price is. If there's not enough margin, they don't build the house. If the price goes up, the market goes up, they don't sell the house for less, they sell it at the market price. These fees are absolutely irrelevant to the price of housing. It only affects the cost of housing. Very important difference.
And Steve, I would also echo that. We're trying to cover our cost. I mean, that's all we're trying to do is cover our costs. We're not making a profit on this. We're trying to cover our cost of the growth. There are other sources we're looking for, but that's going to be long-term maintenance. That's going to be...
Right. And Mr. Mayor, it's important to understand, it doesn't matter whether it's an impact fee. It doesn't matter whether it's a sales tax. It doesn't matter whether it's a bond. It doesn't matter whether it's state money or UDOT money or anything else. It is all taxpayer money. There's not a dollar that gets spent that doesn't come out of taxpayer pockets, no matter how it gets paid. So it doesn't matter whether we charge it here or it gets charged in a tax or whatever it is, it's coming out of taxpayer pockets to pay for taxpayer-used roads. That's how our system works.
Okay, let's continue with public comment. If we need to come back to that, we will. Any other public comment at this point? Okay, look for a motion to close public comment.
Moved.
Motion by Jared.
Second.
Second by Teddy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I got a couple comments. So again, to Mr. Danzy's point on the trips per elementary per high school, I first got thrown off on that too. And then I told my wife today, we actually took 5 trips to the elementary school today. One taking the 6-year-old, one taking the 10-year-old because she can't get out of bed in time. And then I went and taught a class there. The wife went and taught a class there. Then we picked up the kids. And so we put a little road mileage on 5600 in Main Street. So I think elementary students do get more drop-offs. There's more parent involvement. There's more missed lunches, parent involvement at those schools. So they do require more trips per day. But that's kind of how I can see those numbers very, very clear there. So,
if I might, Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
These are not also Harriman specific. This is from the International Traffic Engineers Manual, and so it's across the country. It's an average, and so this is
those
ITE,
ITE
different. It is the manual that every community uses.
Yes, so no matter if you're in Utah, Seattle, wherever you're at, ITE trips is the average projections. And if you don't use those numbers, you may open yourself up to a little bit more legal challenge. But this is the kind of the national accepted averages for these land uses. We didn't come up with these numbers, right? This is a Institute of Transportation Engineers that comes up with these numbers, and I would be very weary of going away from those numbers at all, as far as if we're covered legally to do that.
I think it's really important to remember too that impact fees are intended to help mitigate the impacts of new growth. So although the cost goes on to the new home, that it's the impact that it is having on the neighborhood. So the intent is for that new home to have to pay for the impact it will have on the road system. And as it was indicated earlier, these will not pay for the road, but they help. They help mitigate the impact that the neighborhood has absorbing the growth.
Okay, look for a motion at this point then, if there's no further discussion.
Motion to approve ordinance number 2023-07, adopting an impact fee facilities plan, impact fee analysis, and an impact fee enactment that imposes a transportation impact fee, providing for the calculation and collection of such fee, and providing for appeal, accounting, severability of the same, and other related matters.
Motion by Steve.
Second.
Second by Jared. Steve?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes, and I'd like to make a comment after.
Okay, Teddy?
yes.
Jared?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. Sherry?
I would just also just like to indicate, this is not the first time we've seen this. This has been in many work meetings, and we've been able to review these numbers and look over them often. So I don't want any perception to be that we saw this presentation tonight and we're making a decision based on that, because that would not be the case. These have been numbers that we've all had the responsibility to go through and study and decide whether or not we felt like we should move forward in those.
Thank you, Sherry. Okay, that brings us to the conclusion of our meeting tonight. Future meetings, next Planning Commission meeting is March 15th. The next City Council meeting is March 22nd. The Joint Council Planning Commission meeting on the 29th has now been canceled. So at this point, I'll look for a motion to recess and go back to work meeting.
So moved.
Motion by Sherry, second by Jared. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you guys for joining us.
Yes, thank you, everybody, for coming tonight.